Hey everybody, this is Devon Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
And Devon,
Yeah,
I just turned 5.
we both just turned 5.
We've both
It was a
turned
couple weeks
5.
ago,
Happy
but
birthday!
schedule-wise, it's now. Happy birthday, Victoria.
We're twins. We're 5-year-old twins.
I cannot believe we have been doing this for 5
I
years
didn't
now.
think we would last 2 episodes, to be honest.
And this is the 151st episode. This is our Mewtwo of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
I really like Mewtwo.
If you look back, you can see references to every single Gen 1 Pokemon that have been made in the episode of that number. Good joke, Victoria.
Thank you.
Up until now. And that is going to stop next episode, because who cares about Gen 2? We talked about Mewtwo, which means we're done with Pokemon forever now.
We can never talk about Pokemon forever, ever again. Otherwise, we have to end the podcast immediately.
Until we get to Mimikyu, I will not ignore Mimikyu, but that will not be for like 800 more episodes or whatever.
Let's just
that's like
devote every single next episode to Mimikyu.
It's fair. This podcast is just going to shift gears dramatically.
Everyone loves Mimikyu.
So this is episode 151 of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. Victoria, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about something I wanted to talk about for a very long time, but we haven't, because Devon wouldn't let me. So, we're talking about our favorite episodes of Odyssey.
Yes, I feel like you've been all with us now finally long enough that we can be self-indulgent enough to do an episode purely based around our personal preferences and not about any kind of actual show-relevant thing. I mean, it's kind of show-relevant.
Some of these episodes, just a heads up, we've reviewed before.
Most of them,
but we're not going to spend too long talking about each individual one. I have 5 I have to get through. Devon has 5 he has to get through. We're going to go up to our number 1 slots. But both of our choices are very different. We don't know what we picked.
The other person picked. We did guess.
Though.
Yesterday at each other, but we didn't tell, like, how close we were.
Yeah. Should we bring up what we guessed for each other?
I'll say to you, you only guessed 2 of my top 5.
Really?
Yeah, but you did get 3 of my top 6.
Oh,
so
okay.
One of the ones you guessed was one of the ones I was struggling with, the last one that I cut out of the list.
I'm trying to find my guesses for you.
And the 2 you got right are like the most obvious choices.
Yeah, I think I know which ones they are.
Yeah.
Actually, one of them, I think it could be between.
Well, my number 1 is super obvious because I've talked over and over and over again about how it's my number 1 episode. Also, we've reviewed 4 out of the 5 of mine, and I think you said the same.
Yeah.
For your list.
So, like, 2 of your guesses were right for my top 5. So we're on the same plane there. But with my top 10, which I did take a picture of so I wouldn't lose, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And 2 of the ones I almost added to my top 10, but then just had to cut. Nice. So, like, all of the ones that you named for me were very spot on.
I kept my list of my top, I don't know how many, or 25-ish, from going through, like, all of the episodes ever and just pulling out a list and then picking the top 5 out of that.
I copied and pasted the entirety of the Odyssey library into a note off of, like, AIOO Wiki, and I went through every episode, just getting rid of, like, the ones I don't like at first.
Yeah,
and then I just had all the ones I generally like. I think I had almost, like, 400 left, and then I started narrowing it down from there, just going through the list over and over again. I
just scrolled through my Omni Chronology playlist in iTunes, and I just hit like down through the list, and then I would write down the names of the ones I liked as I went.
See, I thought about doing something like that, but I wanted to give each episode its own fair shot that I might not have considered otherwise. So
Well, I
every
went through
single
every
one
episode
of the
too, just like you did.
844 episodes, I gave at least a solid 10 seconds of thought towards, if not 10 minutes or more, whether or not it should be on my list. I spent such a long time. I spent hours working on this list.
Yeah, it took me about
So
90 minutes to make my list. Okay, so let's get into it.
you're going to
Who?
start.
Okay,
Yeah.
am I gonna be first for each time then, or
Yes.
are we
You're
gonna
going to give your
snake?
number 5.
Okay, my number 5 out of my personal top 5 episodes ever is episodes 406 to 408, Malachi's Message, parts 1 to 3.
I
It
wondered if you were going
is
to say Malachi's Message.
this episode is just it's such an interesting plot idea, like one of the more out there ones. Like a literal angel comes to Odyssey to deliver special messages to all the main characters. Very like spiritually, conceptually, it's out there. Like they're making a hard take on angels and the way they work. It's strongly implied that Jason gets physically transported to the center of Trickle Lake, like he was baptizing the Ethiopian eunuch at the beginning of Acts. So like there's a lot of interesting spiritual things they do there. The plot, the concept of the plot allows for conveniently simultaneous forward movements in the arcs of like all the main characters, regardless of how connected their stories actually would normally be. And it has Tom coming up with the Timothy Center, Connie getting hired at the Timothy Center, Connie starts discussing college and future stuff post-graduation. Eugene starts looking to his own future. He gets hired at the college at the end. Joanne leaves the missions game to stay full-time in Odyssey with Jack. Jason gets the calling to pick up Joanne's place, head out in the missions field, which builds the transmuter, I guess. It has like a huge portion of the main cast, and because the messages involve them developing their own main arcs, they need to be dealing with all of those things in the episode. So we see this huge simultaneous intersection of all the characters interacting concerning their all major storylines and major plot events all at the same time, which is super cool. And it's like all of the storylines that rarely get addressed or things like that, or they're all spread apart, all feed through this bottleneck monkey's fist of plot stuff, and then it spreads back out again after this point. It also sets up a lot of stuff that's relevant to the Novacom saga as well at the same time, even though that wasn't intentional back then. So it's just like it's a really cool idea, like the whole like angel coming down and he's appearing and disappearing and telling people things, and like no one believes that he's real and stuff. Everyone has their own different ideas and suspicions about what's going on. And meanwhile, we get to see all of these characters moving massively, all taking steps forward at the same time in all of their vastly disparate types of arcs that they're going through. This is cool.
Quick question. Are we going to read like some of our other top spots that didn't make it in later?
You can if you want.
Okay. I'm just going to read my honorable mentions really quick before I forget.
Okay, I'll do mine first then,
Okay,
since I
yours
just did my
first.
5. Excuse me. So I'll just read the rest of my list that I had that aren't the ones that made it in. The Eugene Returns trilogy. Charlotte, the top floor, was my number 6 position that I was vying back and forth, and that was one of the ones you guessed. Exit, Karen, Clara, Greater Love, A Christmas Conundrum, Darian's Rise, The Black Veil, The Green Ring Conspiracy, Out of the Picture, Tornado, Flash Flood, The Mortal Coil, The Jubilee Singers, Where Is Thy Sting, One
I
More
guess
Name,
the Jubilee Singers.
yes, Solitary Refinement. Oh, that's a good episode. Telemachus, Plan B, No Way In / Out, Mum's the Word, and Prequels of Love were the other things I picked.
I would have guessed Solitary Refinement for you if you hadn't told me you didn't pick any single part episodes.
It is such a good. Tornado I was also playing with as well.
Since I'm gonna read like my 5 honorable mentions, I'll just mention the 2 that you listed for me that didn't make it onto the list, but they almost did. Charlotte and Buried Sin. They were very hard for me to part with, but
What were the other ones?
The other ones are An Act of Nobility. That one was like so close to making it as my number 5. Telemachus, that one was also like really, really close to making it. I almost went back and put Telemachus in, but then I changed my mind. Champ of the Camp. another part of that was I just wanted to say like number 3, chump of the
Chump of the
comp,
Comp.
and then see your reaction. But that wasn't worth it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So Groundhog J. I actually don't have any J episodes in this list, which hurt me. And then Out of the Woods, because that I think Out of the Woods and A Perfect Testimony are like the 2 that have hit the closest home to me for like spiritual lessons and stuff like that. So yeah, Out of the Woods is the more important one to me. But yeah. So now I guess it's time for my number 5. This is one that you guessed. There's one on my list. You never would have guessed it. I'm excited to see what you think of that one.
Wooten's Broken Pencil Show.
Yeah.
I contemplated making a joke list for you that was like that.
I thought about making a joke list for you. That was like
Stepping
Wooten's Broken
Stones,
Pencil Show, I Slap
Fairy
Floor.
Television, A Change of Heart, Nothing to Fear.
Push the Red Button.
Yeah.
I actually don't dislike Fairy Television. Surprisingly.
It's not the worst,
I don't mind that one. Okay, episodes 805 to 806. What do you think it is, Devon?
That is the end of album 54/84 to 86. That's the Labyrinth, right?
It is A Very Bassett Wedding, parts 1 and 2.
Oh, 800. Sorry, I was thinking 600.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking 700. Sorry.
So, A Very Bassett Wedding. This episode, it finally like not ended, but it was like a really, really good conclusion to the entire like engagement between Wooten and Penny that was built up for so many albums. We have My Beautiful Boy Wellington in it, which I'll admit that's a very big part in why I chose this. And it has one of my favorite like combinations of characters to team up and scheme ever, starting after this episode, which I hope they team up again. Probably will never happen, but I want it. Which is Eugene, Connie, and Wellington, because they are an amazing combination. Just the entire thing with like Eugene and Connie pretending to be engaged and everything so they could get the ring back, only to find out it wasn't the ring, and then they get caught by Whit. The fact that Whit was the person that ended up officiating the marriage because Wooten knew Penny well enough to know that like she wouldn't be comfortable with a stranger doing it. And there's so many other things, like Wooten missing the ring. Wooten and Wellington finally, like after so many albums, like since Wellington's been introduced and like the few appearances he's had over many years, they finally like start a peaceful relationship between each other, and they start getting along, and they like actually accept each other. And the fact that like probably none of Wooten's other family members could really come who were in his immediate family. There's no mention of like his grandma or his grandpa or anything like that. But like the fact that Wellington could make it when his father and mother obviously didn't come, and that he was able to like fix that relationship with Wellington is so beautiful to me, when like he doesn't really have that kind of support structure in his family from anyone except for his grandpa. And what else? What else is there? Just, I love Penny in this episode. Connie, you can see how much she's grown ever since Eugene and Katrina's wedding, because she already has like all these fail-safe things, and now Eugene is working with her, and Connie kind of gets to passively, not so directly, be like, now you know what it was like to deal with your wedding, because you were off and you got lost and stuff, so you didn't have to deal with any of that. And it's just so good. It's so much fun. It's very fun, and you can tell how much like love all the actors put into it, and it also made me cry. So there's that. This is the only episode in my top 5 that made me cry.
Oh, you didn't put the 30th birthday live show in there?
No, I didn't. You're never gonna let go of that.
Okay, it's my turn.
Yeah.
All right. Numero 4 is episodes 394 to 395. Patrick, A Heart of Fire, parts 1 and 2.
Yes! I almost put this in my top 10.
One of, if not the best sound designed episodes ever made. The thing I appreciate about this over basically every other historical episode is that Whit does such a great job at pointing out which stuff is historical, which stuff is conjecture. At one point he talks about 2 branching accounts and he lets Jared follow the one he wants to because we don't know what happened, and I'm glad. It's nice when we hear these stories to actually know what do we know and what do we think might have happened. Because we hear these episodes and we're like, I don't know how much of this is real. It's not usually explained. And so it's nice to be like, well, some scholars think this perhaps. We've heard varying accounts. This part we do know. And it's nice to know, like, we don't know what we know. No. I really,
Jefferson
really
is
like.
dying.
I really like that. And it's just a really cool story about a holiday that we still celebrate today, about which people know almost nothing. And it just sounds so good. And he was a cool guy and stuff, so it's, yeah.
I'm glad that Jared made it into your top 5, because he is the best character in all of Odyssey.
All right. What's your number 4, Victoria?
My number 4, I think this one might be on your list.
Say the numbers again, and I'll see if I can guess it from the numbers.
464 to 465.
464
this
to
isn't
5.
on your list?
No.
Oh, we didn't choose any episodes in common then.
464
sure
to
have this one.
5, so it's a 2-parter.
Yep.
And it would be around album 35 or 6.
That sounds right to me.
The Triangle.
Yes, the Triangle parts 1 and 2. If you keep up with all of the Oddcast episodes that we do, first off, congratulations. They are very long, and I apologize for that. Second, you would know that in like the past couple months, we have spent almost every single episode ranting about how amazing the Triangle is, it feels like.
Well, you have spent several episodes talking about it. I don't think I've ever really brought it up. I do like the episode.
But throughout all these episodes, and the fact that like this episode keeps on coming to my mind over and over and over again, it just like solidified so strongly for me over the past couple weeks how much I love this episode, because I've always loved it. But if you asked me before we started, or I started talking about it all the time in the Oddcast, I probably wouldn't have put it in my top 5, and I'd be surprised to find out that I did. But like, this is my favorite era of Whit's life to like see from, and we get to see Whit and how he met Jenny, and it's been like such a long story coming for everyone who listens to the show. It must have been incredible the first time people heard this. As we talked about in the Triangle review, it has like an incredible payoff for a joke that was made all the way back in
29.
The Decision?
In 29, where he talks about for whom the wedding bells toll. I assume you mean about Jack always stealing Whit's girlfriends?
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
I was trying to remember what episode it was. For some reason, I thought it was in Welcome Home.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Home Sweet Home, you mean?
No. The first one with Joanne.
The Decision.
Yeah, The Decision.
There's also, they copy the line from The Mortal Coil, where it's like, this is Jenny, I believe you met her at the Pasadena Public Library.
And there are like so many bits, and it has like the most amazing payoffs for everything, and everything's like so well interwoven, and you get to meet Emily. It's the only episode where she's actually had spoken lines, which, no, I'm not going to get past that, because I actually really, really like Emily, even though she's only had like 1 minute of screen time in all of Odyssey.
Is this you being angry that she didn't show up in Charlotte?
I'm still upset she didn't show up in Charlotte, because that would have been great. I'm more upset that Jack didn't show up in Charlotte.
That's fair.
But I am glad that I'm still like riding high on the fact that Jack and Emily were mentioned in Charlotte. That made me very happy.
I'm sure we'll get more episodes with childhood Jack, Wilson, and Wit
I think so
in the
too.
future, in the near future.
I'm really excited.
Especially
And
since the books are going to be coming out.
And so, yeah, we get to see Wit making a complete fool of himself in front of Jenny, and like all of the complex things that happened between Jenny and Wit and Jack. And my favorite scene is honestly the Emily scene. I think it's great, and kind of like how you always see how Wit has issues with his family. And has to struggle past that, and sometimes in like past Wood episodes he has to have like long conversations with Jenny, or in present day ones he has to have ones with Jana. I think the conversation Jack has with Emily is kind of like the equivalent to that for him, with like how you have to move past like all this emotional baggage and stuff. And also the fact that it has something we don't get nowadays when we get past Wit stuff. It has Connie actually hearing the story, because now all we get is Renee hearing the story.
It's true.
I also love that both Jack and Wit are telling the story in present day. And it's not just one of them, because you get to hear like events that happened that neither of them experienced or fully knew about. And it's so good. Everyone go listen to The Triangle. Okay.
Okay. So continue on with more ones that we've already reviewed, because my number 5 position, Malachi's Message, was the only one we hadn't reviewed. Number 3, episodes 574 to 576. I don't know if you want to even venture guesses at my episode numbers. 574, 576.
The one no. The top floor?
No, that
Prisoners
was my
of
number
Fear.
6. Yes.
Okay.
Prisoners of Fear, parts 1 to 3. Speaking of sounding good, Patrick, A Heart of Fire.
Soundtrack.
This episode obviously has my favorite music of any episode ever made. It brings in so many new multi-dimensional characters introduced in such a short period of time. It sheds light on what happened during Eugene and Katrina's time away from Odyssey while they were running from Novacom. It contains probably one of the biggest plot twists in the history of the show, and that plot twist kicks off one of the most underappreciated multi-album arcs ever made that happened in the most long-form plotline dense period of the show's history.
I don't really think it's that underappreciated.
I think it is. People never talk about it.
Yeah.
From albums 45 to 49. It's intense, it's emotional. It opens up a whole new area of the map for the show in present day that gets revisited multiple times in the future. It has so many great characters and music and plot and backstory, and it's great.
Oh, you're done?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else.
No, that's why I wrote out all my points in advance, so I could get everything and not come back later and be like, oh, I wish I hadn't forgotten to say that, but also so I can get through stuff quickly and not just ramble on forever.
I'm trying not to ramble. Am I rambling?
No.
Okay.
I just knew as we go farther down the list to stuff we like more and more, we're going to ramble more and more, so that's why I'm like, type out the line.
Honestly, I have like almost nothing to say about some of my top spots.
That's why I was like, if I type it all out in advance, I'm not going to spend 10 minutes blapping about each one.
Okay, my next one is one that we've not reviewed. It's the only one on my list that we've not reviewed. This is the one I didn't think you would guess.
Okay, give me the
You'll
number.
be able to figure out what it is from the number. It is episode 499.
Yes. Well, that was on my long list. Exit.
I contemplated one episode, or not episode, but episodes that stuck in like my top list for a long time, but I don't even think made it down to the top 20, was Plan B.
Yeah.
And one that made it into, I think, my top 15 was Sheep's Clothing, just because I love Monica so much, and how that episode feels like a little action movie. But Exit, I had to choose Exit. There's been so many times where I'm in a Novacom mood, but not enough to listen to all of Novacom, because that would take a long time. So I just listened to Exit. I've listened to Exit more than any other Novacom episode.
The other option where you're feeling that is part 2 of Plan B, which is the most like
I mean, I would have chosen
crazy.
all the parts of Plan B because I know they
I'm
have
just saying
different
if you
names,
said like
but I was
a
hoping that
single
they would count
episode.
as one episode.
I know. I'm just saying if you're like I have time to listen to one single episode to like feel Novacom, to me it'd either be Plan B Part 2 or Exit.
Yeah. Exit has my favorite bit of sound design in the entirety of Odyssey. Sometimes I just rewind to like the end of the episode so I can listen to like the imagination station exploding because it is the freaking coolest thing ever. And it feels like, honestly, if Odyssey ended with the episode Exit, it would feel completely like it deserved it with that ending. Because you have the imagination station, which it's been changed a lot and upgraded and stuff through the years, but it has been the same imagination station ever since Digger Digwella went in it in album 5. And then
Digger Dig Willow?
yeah, and then for it to be destroyed like hundreds and hundreds of episodes later, it's so emotional, and you can hear bits from like all of the different imagination station programs. I can like hear them in my mind, like Nathaniel yelling the Tower of Babel and stuff like that. And oh, it's so good. It's so incredible. And you also have Mitch having to save Connie because she gets kidnapped. You have that heartbreaking scene with Agnes and Tom at the ending, which like always chokes me up and makes me really emotional. And we've talked about that scene a lot in the past year.
Yeah.
And
We have the scene. I
so
hate the scene with Eugene where he leaves the message on the answering machine, but it's only made of clips from previous episodes that have been cut up. And if you know the show as well as we do, it's really like painfully obvious that it's recut clips from earlier episodes.
I mean, since this was the first album we ever got, we of course didn't realize that for a while.
We also didn't listen to that until
we hadn't heard all those other episodes, but upon like re-listening to it. But it's the same thing with them and Hal for like when.
But there's when they have Hal's lines that they use recut audio in Gone. Those lines that they use, because they're just short little snippets, mostly in the context of him in a conversation with other people, they're things like, oh, could you pass me that pillow, please? And stuff like that, where they're not lines that you hear it and you think, oh, this is...
No, I was talking about in the answering machine message that he left after Eugene became a Christian. Because that one's like really...
The search for
blatantly obvious, yeah. Every single time I listen to like Hal or Will's voices being reused and all cut up, it just reminds me of when Blackard did that to Jason in Darkness Before the Dawn, and he was like, you can't really think that's going to work. It's not going to fool people. Yeah.
I like how in the official guide it points out that they had originally made, because they're sound designers, they had made a cut of the audio, but they made it so good that you couldn't actually tell that it was cut up, so they had to make a crappier version, so it was obvious that he spliced the audio.
I remember that. But Exit is definitely one of the most amazing episodes of Odyssey, and it must have been like so much pressure after working on the Novacom saga for so long to have a satisfying conclusion. And when you have
to fit it into one episode.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many things going on in this episode. And for like so many different plot threads that have been going on for years to finally be like wrapped up in one single episode, not even a multi-parter, but a single episode, you like never see that basically. Like even with all the Blackard episodes that did end with like, well, Blackard's Revenge, that was a multi-parter. But like 25 does end with a single part, but that's basically like an entire multi-part album.
Although I would argue that
the
last
does feel
2 to 4 parts, I'd argue the last 2 to 3 to 4 parts of Battle Lines is like all the climax.
But I think it feels like more separated because of like Under the Influence and all the little mini story arcs you have like in the album, which
but I
know people could argue that for like Small Fires, Little Pools and stuff like that and Angels Unaware, but I'm not going to get into that argument.
At least the last 2 episodes of 38 are like pretty like together.
Yeah, but still, I've listened to this episode enough times on its own and it's still completely satisfying on its own. In fact, I'd recommend listening to it by itself just because you don't get muddled about like everything else that's going on, and you can really concentrate on like how incredible the episode is just standalone.
And I was going to say about it, because you were saying how much stuff has fit into it. Fun fact about Exit that you guys probably know, I'm sure I've mentioned it before. Exit is the episode with the most separate scenes ever.
Oh, I didn't know that. That makes a lot of sense, though.
I think there's like 26 scenes in that episode.
The only strike against this episode for me is the feeling you get with the lack of conclusion towards who the chairman is. The chairman just being in a helicopter, and you're like, I don't recognize that voice, and they're like, oh, okay, we gotta go, and then he's just gone forever, and you're like, no, no, that wasn't, but yeah, that's my only strike against the episode. Other than that, I think it is a perfect episode.
Cool. Number 2 for me. Oh, I forgot to look up the episode numbers for the last 2 of them, but I can do it in iTunes
You don't know them off the top of your head, Devon?
I'm sorry, I'm a bad fan.
You are a bad fan. You're a bad...
That's why I keep them on iTunes. This is episode 135 to 137.
Oh, that's an earlier one.
Uh-huh.
Is it Aloha?
You did not guess this on your list. What?
Is it Aloha Oi? That's probably way too far. Okay, is it The Perfect Witness?
Nope.
Is it... Oh, I know what it is.
What?
I think I know what it is. Is it Back to Bethlehem?
It is Back to Bethlehem, parts 1 to 3. This was one of our first few episodes ever. We added on a Chick-fil-A cassette tape. The nativity story has been told several times on this show. It's the longest and most detailed telling in this episode. We have Connie and Eugene adventure. There's so much good bickering and sweet emotional moments. Both of them are coming after each other in the beginning.
Cyber boyfriend.
They both learn about how they were partially wrong and partially right. There's so many incredible characters. Same thing with with Prisoners of Fear. Like, so many great characters. Judah, Rebecca, Lucanus, the shepherds, Hezekiah. It's super funny. There's so many good funny lines in it. Connie standing up for herself and asserting her power against the constant misogyny that she's facing. I just learned a few weeks ago that Judah was a legit dude mentioned in Acts by the religious leaders when deciding what to do with the way. He was not just an OC, I finally learned, even though he's never mentioned in any of the Gospels. We have a computer program falling in love with Connie and knowing the fact that Whit programmed that in. There's the super cool, like, underappreciated thing with Judah, where we see the contrast of him representing Israel's historical expectations for the Messiah, like to be a warrior and a political revolutionary who would overthrow the Roman oppressors with bloodshed and lead the nation into a new era of political dominance, contrasted against what Jesus actually was, someone who would free them from their dear spiritual oppressions, coming in a weak and meager, humble form.
Judah sees Jesus, and he's like, a baby? And I'm like, shut up, Judah.
And there's so many good lines from Hezekiah. The moments between him, my favorite line, one of my favorite lines in the whole history of Odyssey is in this episode. Sorry?
Get it tattooed on your arm.
Which is Hezekiah saying, what I believe in is found at the place where the mind and the heart unite. Eugene says, what is that? Faith. The moments between him and Eugene ended up having a lasting effect on Eugene and his character development that led all the way up to The Time Has Come, which had clips referencing back to him and Hezekiah talking in this episode.
All that good character development in our top episodes. Especially, I think the most character development heavy out of all the episodes that we've chosen, that we've said so far, is Malachi's message. Probably.
Yeah. Because, like I said, the plot was designed to be character development for literally everyone, no matter how different their stories are. Or unrelated their stories are. Okay, what's your number 2, Victoria? Tell me the number.
Number 2 is episode 625.
625.
You didn't guess this one. I was surprised you didn't guess this one.
So it's a one-parter?
Yes.
Okay. This is around album 6:49 or so, or 48.
That's
6:25.
right.
Because 6:45 is Kidsborough Part 3.
Do you want to know what album it's in?
No. Is it Run of the Mill Miracle or Something Significant?
It's Something Significant.
Yes.
So where do I even start with this one? This one is so good.
I'm so glad that I'm still on the ball when it comes to episode numbers.
This episode is just like so phenomenally good, and I always get really emotional when I hear like the medley of everyone singing Jesus Loves Me at the end. Let me just say,
it chokes me up every
time. I heard that song too many times when I was little. I did not like that song because I heard it too many times.
And it's
people would
such
always
like
try to get me to sing it in Sunday school, and I
song.
just didn't like it because I heard it too many times. So I'd get annoyed, and it got to the point where I just like hated hearing that song. Mm-hmm. This episode made me like that song. That's how good it is. It got past my little like hatred of the song, and now
entirely the same for me. Yes.
And I got both of them good boys Dwight on my top 5 list, which I don't think is a spoiler because we all knew what was gonna come in my next episode pick. But I love Trent so much, and just him trying to hack the Imagination Station program is so good because we've never seen a character try to do this before, like this sort of thing, who wasn't Trent. Like, if you think
I was gonna say, like, think on these things.
Yeah, think on these things. Trent's like, yeah, I'm gonna change this, and it doesn't go well. And then this one, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna change this, and it doesn't go well because he doesn't. I'll say,
when I was scrolling through the names of the episodes, like all of the episodes, and I haven't listened to a lot of them in so long.
That was one of the things, and A Glass Darkly. Just in my first sweep through, I just got rid of them. I was like, get those out of here.
Think on These Things, I think, was one of the 2 episodes the most where I was looking at it and I was like, I can't remember which episode this is based on the name.
I had to look up a couple episodes. Think on These Things was one of them. I looked up and I was like, nope, not keeping that. And then
both of them did finally come to me without having to listen to the episode to figure it out. I just had to think about it.
And then like lots of the multi-parters, I was looking up like specific single parts in what they were. And I had to do that with some Novacom episodes and some Album 25 episodes. But, yeah, so like this episode is so good, and you see like all these different things, and it just like, this episode has an amazing plot twist with the fact that like Whit knew Trent was gonna hack the program, because I guess apparently Trent's really obvious because he always tries to hack the Imagination Station program. Whit probably has a program specifically for whenever Trent is in the Imagination Station, so he can't
do you know
hack
how
it. It's just called like Dwight XE, because Jared always tries to mess things up too.
Do you know how it knows that it's Trent that's using the Imagination Station?
No.
He's jewelry, Victoria. Jewelry is the only way the Imagination Station can know what person is using it.
Yeah, but like, what jewelry? Trent doesn't wear.
Well, there must be some. You can't use it without jewelry, Victoria, because it's not going to know who you are. If you don't exist, if you don't wear jewelry, you don't exist. If you don't exist, you can't use the station. Because otherwise, Whit could go in with no jewelry, and it would just think he was some random kid.
That's why we've like never seen.
It's gotta have his ring, Victoria.
Wooten hasn't been inside it because he wasn't married.
Yeah.
He didn't have a wedding ring. Anyway, so this episode is just so good. There's so many things. There's too many things to talk about. Just, I can't remember all the individual names. I can't remember the name of the lady who wrote it. Do you remember what it was?
Was it Kathy who wrote it? Is that, you mean who wrote the song?
No, the song.
I don't remember.
Yeah. But, also, I don't know if we were supposed to listen to these episodes.
No, I didn't have time for that.
Okay, I didn't have time either.
I picked all 3-parters and 1 2-parter.
Yeah.
That's 14
this
episodes.
This episode's so good, and the fact that like everything repeats a second time, and you get to see like all the individual things. Part of me is like, that's a mighty big coincidence, but the other part's like, one, this is historically accurate, and 2, I don't care. This episode is beautiful. So, yeah. That's what I have to say about this. Everyone go listen to it.
Yeah.
Number 1, drum roll.
Okay, top of my list is very obvious. Victoria, what could episodes 734 to 736 be?
Life expectancy.
You got it.
I'm right.
Life
I didn't think that'd
expectancy.
be your number 1. Wow.
I've talked a billion times about how it's my number 1 episode.
I almost just put life expectancy part 2 because Jeff.
Remember, like, literally when we reviewed it the first time when it came out?
I remember you saying that, but
I was like, this is now
you say
my
that
number
about a
1.
lot of episodes, and I didn't think it'd actually be your number 1.
I'd never, until this came out, I'd never before picked an overall number 1 favorite episode, and I've never changed it since this came out.
I'm still surprised the top floor didn't make it onto your list.
It was no number 6. I went back and forth. The reason I picked Malachi's Message is I think in a way it's more accessible for people to listen to because Top Floor is like the conclusion of an arc, whereas Malachi's Message starts from a more slice of life baseline. So you can kind of listen to it without needing to listen to the whole saga beforehand. Because I was trying to balance a bunch of different factors into making my list. Life expectancy. The perfect blend of amazing plot, amazing character, amazing lesson. Huge turning point for Connie as a character. She's dealing with the consequences of June's death for years to come. Even in this new album that's coming out now, she's, still in a way dealing with the repercussions of, dealing with roommate figuring out stuff because of living in her mother's house is, still fallout from that. Major callbacks to Touch of Healing and Where Is Thy Sting, which are also amazing episodes. The most major way that the show has delved into the topic of death, suffering, and grief, which has been a number of times, but this is the biggest one. Those are some of the hardest topics to talk about faith-wise. Bill Kendall returns. Jules Kendall is introduced for the first time. Jeff Lewis returns to the show after 1 billion years. Not only do we have lots of talk and examination about death and suffering, but each main character contributes separately and differently to the discussion. Everyone has a different and valid opinion to help encourage Connie depending on their skew of things, the way that they look at things, and it's great and it's diverse the ways that they help because they all come at it from different angles, so you get like a really full-bodied discussion on it from different people. And then the emotions Connie's having are further tied into Jason talking about his fear of losing wit, and it's further tied into Katrina and Eugene talking about how they sought counseling from June when they found out that they couldn't have kids. So even though it's a Connie-centric episode, we get the return of and new major characters going forward, major callbacks from the past, tons of character development for Connie, maybe the best and most full-body discussion of one of the most difficult spiritual topics ever on the show, and it's tied further into some of the most emotional pieces of the stories of other major characters as well. That's my list.
Out of like all different types of media that have made me lose my mind crying in the past couple years, because I'm not counting things that made me cry as a child, because they might not make me cry now, like Bridge to the Terabithia or Forever Amen. Life expectancy is the number 1 for Odyssey, because I was dead after that episode. Movie-wise, probably Infinity War.
Yep. I knew that was coming.
And then book-wise, the third Court of Thorns and Roses book. That book, it wrecked me. And the funny thing is, like, it was because a character died, and then I just like lost it crying. I don't even know why. It's not like he was... Actually, he probably was my favorite character. But it was pretty clear that there was a high chance he would come back. Like, he came back like 3 pages later.
I appreciate a series where the acronym for the name is robust enough to be a name on its own.
ACO War. It's great because it's about war. And it has
ACOTAR, but...
ACOTAR, ACOMAF, ACO War, and ACOFAS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like planets from Homestuck.
Yeah.
Okay. And
my number 1. Episode 415. probably out of the top 5 list for both of us,
Yes.
this was the most obvious one out of all of them.
I feel like mine was the most
people
obvious.
just clicking on the video probably figure out what my number 1 is.
I felt like my number 1 and 3 were the most obvious. Life expectancy, Prisoners of Fear.
Yeah.
My top 3 were like set in, locked, no question. 415, I would assume, is Gloobers.
Actually, it's Buried Sin.
You already said Buried Sin was.
Yeah, I know. I was wondering if you would pick up on that. Okay. Yeah, the thing is, it's Gloobers. If I'm gonna be completely honest, I did wonder if I should just take it out of my contenders for even like my top 10 or anything like that. Because I was sitting there and I was thinking like really deeply about every single one of these episodes, and I was thinking, I have like so many reasons that I want episodes like A Very Basset Wedding and The Triangle and all these others, and even like An Act of Nobility and Buried Sin and stuff, that I want them to be in my top 5 or anything like that. But I can't come up with any reasons for Gloobers, and in fact I was thinking about it, and I was thinking really hard about it, and then I came to the conclusion that objectively, it's not a good episode. Probably.
It's not bad.
Like, I could easily see why people wouldn't like it.
It's not great. But I will say this, though, Victoria.
It's a very, very silly episode.
This is not your top 10 best episodes.
I know.
This is your top 10 favorite episodes, which means your reasons are your own. You're valid in whatever.
The thing is, I don't really have any reasons. At least I don't know what they are. Like I said, if you watch our Gloobers review, I don't really know why I like this episode. I just love it to the point where I can and have listened to it on repeat for over 10 times in a row, and I'm still ready to go for another 10. I'm not tired of it. I just, like, I love this episode. If you came into my room when I was a child, first off, what are you doing in my room? Second off, most likely I had the CD that had Gloobers on it from album 32 in my CD player, because I would just listen to that. Sometimes I would just have it as like background noise while I was playing with my Bratz or Barbies dolls or something like that. And then there would be certain points where I just had to like pause whatever game I was playing, and I'm like, wait, no, I need to listen to them defeat the Master Brain. It's important.
This is probably the only album that has in common multiple episodes across our lists, right? Because I have Malachi's Message and you have Gloobers.
Probably, yeah. And it's Jared and Dwayne. I love Jared and Dwayne so much. They have one of my favorite friendships on Odyssey. This episode and like Buried Sin, which is right before it. I'd say like consecutively different episodes out of like my favorites. The closest you ever get to 2 episodes being my favorites and them being super close together is Buried Sin and Gloobers. And like both of them has amazing like writing for Jared and Dwayne's friendship, and it's so beautiful and I love them together. And this episode is so much fun. I think that's what it is. I just have a lot of fun whenever I listen to this episode. Like, personally, I would love to play this game. It'd be so much fun. I think like a big part of this, as stupid as it might sound, was I liked Spy Kids 3 when I was younger. And this kind of reminds me of the game in Spy Kids 3. Like, both of them, I mean, Spy Kids 3, horrible CGI, let me just say. But, like, both of them include shoes that bounce, and they look like they would be fun to actually play. That's the only parallels I could draw between them. There weren't really many more parallels when I thought about it more. Also, Elijah Wood is in both of them for some reason, but we're not going to talk about that. Just these episodes are so much fun.
Wait, did you just say Elijah Wood is in Gloobers?
That was a joke.
Okay.
I just wanted to bring up again the fact that Elijah Wood is in Spy Kids 3 and no one knows why, and it's the most confusing thing ever. It's also hilarious because he dies immediately.
It is funny, yes.
It is really funny.
I was confused because in my mind I had just been glancing, thinking about RVB, and then you said Elijah Wood is in both of them. For a second I was like, yes, that's correct. Wait.
But yeah, do you have nice things to say about Gloopers, Devon?
It has Jared in it.
Yeah,
And it is one of the two. It's tied for the most adapted episode.
Heck yeah.
With 3 versions across Odyssey Media.
I meant compliments, though.
That is a compliment.
Okay. I really like the stuff they have with what's his name? What's that boy's name? I know Eugene. What it is.
Oh, him.
No, the other
yeah.
guy.
Him. I know who you mean.
Oh, it's gonna
the kid.
Me. Yeah, the kid who's
the guy. He's the guy. He's Elijah Wood.
This many years old. Yeah, Elijah Wood. When they see Elijah Wood, oh, I know his name. It's bothering me so much.
He's like, I look young, but I'm actually super old because I'm a hobbit.
Because my life's getting drained away, and like, because
I'm a hobbit.
I just love that this is in the Room of Consequence. Like, it's a Room of Consequence episode. They're always amazing. All the best episodes are Room of Consequence ones. As witnessed by how none of Devon's episodes were Room of Consequence ones and only one of mine was.
One out of our top 10.
But even I think in my top 10, this was the only Room of Consequence episode. But anyway, yeah, and then you just have them meeting that kid at the end, and they're like, whoa! Like, it's really 90s, and then it ends, and I love it. I have to look up that guy's name. It's driving me crazy. I know what it is.
It's like Riley or something. I don't remember.
Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. I haven't even listened to Gloopers in forever, and yet I know what it is.
Is that... Well, you don't. Is that all you had to say about it?
I don't really have much to say about Gloopers. I just love it for some unknown reason.
All right. I assume that's the end of our list then?
Gregory. That's what his name is.
Oh, that makes sense, because Greg's older brother is Elijah Wood. It all ties together.
You mean younger brother?
No. Greg's older brother is Elijah Wood.
Oh, I thought you said Elijah Wood's older brother.
No, yeah.
Yeah, never mind. Okay.
Yeah, it all ties together. Okay, that's our episode.
Yep.
Yeah, that was fun. That was nice and pretty low maintenance, except for you, apparently.
What do you mean?
Because you spent hours and hours and hours making your list.
Oh, I thought you meant I talked about my episodes too long, and I was thinking I tried. I didn't have enough time to write up things about my episodes, so I was trying to be really concise with what I said about them. I don't think I did that bad. Except for Gloopers.
No, it was fine.
I was just reaching for compliments for Gloopers, because I'm
I get it.
What can I even say about this? I love it, just because.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is all that we have to say about that. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us for 5 years.
Let us know what your favorite episodes are.
Yeah.
I want to hear what other people's favorite episodes are, if we have any in common with you guys. I'm probably the only Odyssey fan ever whose favorite episode is Gloopers, I maintain.
Put your top 1, your top 5, your top 10, whatever in the comments, and let us know.
Hopefully you don't take hours making your list like we did. I really want someone like Nathan's episodes to be his number 1 is Gloopers, like Nathan Hoopler. Could you imagine that?
No.
That'd be so funny.
Guys, thank you so much for sticking with us for the last half of a decade. If we can, be even more self-indulgent to reminisce a little back to when we started this podcast. It was a couple months from me moving to Vancouver for the first time. I was curating the museum at Zuckerberg's at the time.
You had a notebook full of ideas for the podcast that you...
A legal pad.
Wrote, which you still have. And there still are things in that notebook that we haven't done yet that we have for episode ideas.
So literally in the 2-3 weeks between deciding we were going to do this podcast and when we started it, I came up with so many ideas that we've still only used like 2/3 of them at this point.
And I would walk from Selkirk, the high school, to Zooks, and you would help me with some math and stuff like that, or biology.
I forgot that you would come
and
by.
then we'd also come up with more ideas for the Oddcasts and stuff.
Yeah, so like you would have been going into grade 11.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then
also, before I forget, shout out to Austin and Tasha for everything,
for starting us down this path.
If it weren't for them, this podcast wouldn't exist.
Exactly, yeah. Thank you to them for initially having us on as regular guests on the Adventures in Odyssey blogcast, which is how we got the start with this when they decided
we reviewed The Labyrinth, and then later on we reviewed The Lost Riddle and Groundhog Day.
Yep. And we also, we acted in a number of their productions and stuff, and appeared in other various things in their podcast. I
learned how to say the word facility.
You did? Oh, maybe you did.
Maybe possibly.
That's debatable. And then when their podcast ended, that's when we picked things up. So since then, let's see, I moved to Vancouver and started at UBC. You graduated high school. I moved to Alberta. I worked for the federal government. I bred peas like Gregor Mendel, which Eugene references in Buried Sin. I moved back to Vancouver again. You graduated high school. You started going to Selkirk. And then you finished your year there. You moved to Vancouver.
And then we were in the same... And then I did commute all the way to you whenever we wanted to record, which was kind of a pain.
Yeah. Now we live in the same house.
Yeah.
Although we're not in the same city right now, but in a month you'll be back here again, and we live in the same place, which is crazy. And it's just wild over the last 5 years.
Montage! In the arms of an angel, away from here, I don't know any more of the words. I don't even know if that's how the next part of the song goes, but...
Yeah. I'll flash like a blinding, like rapid montage.
Insert the Angels thing here. The song from Evangelion.
Oh, yeah. That was, objectively speaking, the best thing that this podcast has ever done.
Yeah, it was. It was probably the only time anyone's ever made an AMV for the movie show. So, yeah, the only way I could get Devon to actually, as I've said in the past, the only way I could convince him to do a podcast with me was if we made it things that weren't just reviews. So that's why we have the what ifs and the discussions and the TV show reviews and the book reviews and predictions. Well, actually, lots of other album or like podcasts have predictions, but also a shout out to Kevin McCreary and everyone else at the Ceiling Fan, because I wouldn't have wanted to make a podcast in the first place if it weren't for that podcast, because I really liked that podcast.
And thank you to everyone who has let us interview them.
Yeah.
Over time, which hasn't been that many people, admittedly. We have been pretty phenomenally bad at taking the initiative to actually, like, get people to do interviews.
Hopefully we're going to have another one coming up soon, though. It's hopefully that time of year again.
And you know what the problem is, honestly, Victoria? Because normally with this sort of thing, you'd think...
likes us.
You'd think normally the problem would be that we can't get people to interview them. And the issue is... Sorry?
Is it scheduling?
No, well, I mean... that can make it trickier to schedule, but honestly, could have done a bunch over the last year.
Probably.
And the problem is that we are both too old to have a decent sense of the passage of time anymore. That by the time it feels like it's time to do a new interview, instead of being 2 months, it's now been 12 months since we did the last one. And to me, it feels like it was 2 months ago that we talked to Kathy. I'm too old now.
She's a beautiful human being.
Time passes so fast without me realizing it that like the years fly by, and I'm like literally, I was like, oh, I guess we should finally do another interview now for the Oddcast. It feels like we just talked to Katie and Will. Oh, it's been 18 months since we did that. Or was it 2 years by that point?
I
2 years, I
don't know.
think,
2
apart
years
that they were.
probably.
Yeah.
But no, 18 months because we talked to them over Christmas.
It wasn't Christmas. We talked to Ari at Christmas. We talked to them while I was in Alberta, so it was.
Oh.
It was
No,
in
we
August.
didn't. We talked to them downstairs in the music room.
You're right.
Yeah, it was over
You're right.
Christmas. Because I remember you saying, I'm going to talk to Will over Christmas. And I was like, no, you will not.
Yeah, so yeah, it's been a year. Yes, you're right, because I scheduled it for then. It has been a year. It was a year and a half between those. We're so old that time goes by so fast.
I mean,
and
you're
like,
older than me. Time's still okay for me.
I still feel like time goes by too fast.
In fact, there's lots of things. I was looking at my book list of things I've read this year, and I was like, I thought I read that like a really long time ago. Except for it was like a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think time's slowing down for me, actually.
Well, then you should be the one to tell me that we need to do interviews, because you'll remember the passage of time.
Okay.
That's the issue. I'm too old and you don't communicate.
That's me. If you sing the communicate rap, I will hang up on you immediately.
Yeah, I know. That's why I didn't do it.
Also, if anyone ever wants us to do a Q&A, I'm saying it because Devon never lets me say it.
Well, that's because I don't think anyone wants... This is already... This last 5-10 minutes has already been, and this whole episode, way more self-indulgent than I've ever let us be, because I think that we are still not at the point where people are interested enough in us as entertainers versus us as content creators, like for the content we produce, that they want that much like
that could be true.
Personality-driven content.
If so, they've already stopped watching. It doesn't matter anymore.
You're right.
Okay, so what are we going to do next time?
Next time, we are starting to talk about album 65, Expect the Unexpected.
65.
So we'll be talking about The Shame About Fame and The Sandwich Initiative.
Both sound like amazing episodes, Devon. I'm so excited.
Well, I hope you've already listened to The Shame About Fame.
I haven't.
Because we're supposed to record it right now.
I didn't have time. I'm sorry.
Well, another time.
Yeah.
But
this weekend's been insane.
We will leave you guys off here. Until next time, when we talk about those, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devon Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
And I have been Victoria Francis, also known as Ren. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Or if this is your first time, thank you for listening to our opinions, because we're complete strangers to you.
Not the worst episode, I guess, to start on?
Yeah.
Unlike usual.
You get to find out more about us as people, so.
I guess so. And this is kind of like a top highlights episode, although it's the highlights of the show, not the highlights of our show, but whatever.
Yeah.
I would love to do a highlights of the best moments of our show, but that would require rewatching the episodes, and there's zero chance I would ever do that.
You know, you should just get my intros and outros from every episode that we've ever done.
Yeah, I could. Well, I made sort of a montage in our.
Yeah, but that was only of like the previous 6 episodes. So.
No, it was like 37 episodes at the time.
Yeah. I'll have to watch it again then. Anyway, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you guys. And
invisible confetti.
This has been The Adventures in Odyssey
Oddcast. Did we say it at the same time?
Not even close.
Well, some things never change.
Exactly.
Thanks, guys.
Goodbye.